It's Spoilerin Time. This is the show where myself, Tom Merritt, and my friend Brian Brushwood sit down and talk about shows we've watched because we do a show called Cordkillers that gives us all the information we need to find great shows. And this week, we're going to talk about The Office UK. We're going back into the vault to watch that one. Episode 3 of Season 1 is the one we'll be talking about. And we'll discuss the finale of HBO's True Detective, Season 3, Episode 8. Brian, how you feeling?
Dude, I'm feeling like I got a decent chance to win the movie draft. I mean, of
course, the Cordkillers movie draft is the winter one, but the summer one, the Night Attack movie draft, is the one where we all get together with our friends and spend some imaginary money to draft what we think are the movies that will make the most money this week. Now, Brian, Us had a 71 million opening this weekend, but that's Grant's movie, not yours. Why are you feeling so positive?
Because Us did an amazing job, a $70 million opening for an $8 game money purchase on Team Beerists. You know what else somebody spent $8 on? Dumbo. You think Dumbo's going to make more money than Us or no?
I mean, I would have said absolutely Dumbo's going to make more money than Us before Us made 71 million in its opening weekend.
Dumbo's gonna crush. I feel pretty good about it. Of course, John Trekker way out in front with $320 million from Captain Marvel. Fun fact, the gross money per price is kind of tied between Captain Marvel and Us. Both made $8 million per game dollar. My guess is Us is going to keep on running.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right?
Spot.
Captain Marvel's been out for a few weeks and is at 8.9 million per game dollar, whereas Us is only going to make more money per game dollar for you because it's going to be out for several more weeks itself. This is its first week out.
You don't think Dumbo's going to crush Us? Like Us is horror. I mean, it's good, but it's horror and rated R.
That's what I was just saying is Us is still going to make money. Captain Marvel's probably made the majority of its money.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm just
that is not to say that Us is going to win the box office next weekend against Dumbo.
I'm just all in my head because I thought you would agree instantly that Dumbo was going to do great, but you seem not confident.
I just don't want to agree with you because it means you'll win.
All right, well, we'll see.
To be fair, I also believe Shazam is going to do really well, which you paid 23, not 8 for. And Shazam is coming out the week after, which is also your movie.
Yeah, you have the next 2 weeks, Brian.
Yeah.
And you have Pet Sematary, which is coming out the same weekend of Shazam and is not really competitive because it's a horror film versus like a kid-friendly superhero film.
And if Us is still in theaters and still doing good, that could eat into Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Even if Cemetery is good.
That's true.
Yeah, although Pet Sematary, we were talking during the main show that it's got some good buzz, so that'd be nice if it did really, really well.
One thing that's interesting about Shazam that I didn't mention in Cordkillers, very, very obviously meant to come out in December. Lots of Christmas scenes.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, because it takes place in winter.
It was the delay of Aquaman is what Eileen said. She's like, Aquaman got delayed. That bumped Shazam to March.
Man, that would be a great Christmas movie. Like that's one you would want to take the whole family to.
Yeah. But instead it's got to try to make all its more money before April 26th.
Yeah.
When Avengers Endgame comes out.
Yeah, no kidding.
There you go. All right. Let's talk about the True Detective finale. It was the best of finales. It was the worst of finales for me. Most of the best, actually. I enjoyed it. There were some meandering points in it where I'm like, you could have made this finale a little shorter. But I liked the way we just sort of circled into filling in the puzzle pieces for everybody and was pretty satisfied by the end.
I was unbelievably satisfied by the end and on multiple fronts. I was happy for what they didn't feel the need to explain. Still never found out the circumstances under which his wife died because by the time we got the information that we got, it didn't matter. It's like, no, of course she died of natural causes. He's an old man. I loved the fact that the obvious thing, the thing we were afraid of, like, I love the fact that they set us up to believe there's a pedophile ring and some really dark, really rich people money stuff happened and that he's so powerful that it can't be brought down. I love the fact that they made that so credible that I was okay with that. And I loved that they subverted it and then subverted the subversion. That was so much fun. They subverted it with the what if she's fine and everything was okay and there was nothing to solve. Look at this. I just got goosebumps thinking about it just now. That was great because it allowed me to go back on my own and re-watch that scene with Michael Rooker and see it in the context of not somebody wicked and evil and going to his carnal urges, but instead somebody who loved his daughter and had to fudge the law and take care of some people and spend a lot of money and can't dare let law enforcement look into this because there's a number of things that would go very badly for him if he did. All of a sudden, you see him as a sympathetic figure, and they didn't overplay their hand. They didn't hammer me over the head with it. It was so believable and so good. And then I think part of the reason that you found it meandery is because most of the other episodes or all of them have been an hour long. This was an hour and a half. I noticed that you got to the first ending at about the 1 hour mark. So I think they had the meandering bits so that you would get to that moment.
Let me tell you right now what was the parts that I would take out are all the parts that have to do with explaining how he ended up being on the public information desk, where he's having the long conversations with his partner. I would just tighten them right up because that was the part where, and it was only in the first, I don't know, 45 minutes of the show where I felt like, man, we're spending a lot of time on talking about stuff that I kind of already know where it's going. As soon as we got into the actual mystery and the subversion, I was extremely satisfied. And I was on the edge of my seat when he shows up at her house. And I'm like, he's not going to be able to remember. Like within a split second, I did not see it come until that second. As soon as he got out of the car, I'm like, oh shit, he's not going to be able to remember.
Yeah. What?
And it was beautiful. It was beautifully executed.
Before we get to that, did you have, I definitely noticed that scene when he bumps into the kid at the orphanage when he's accepting the story that she died.
When that kid's looking at him, I was like, okay, this is very important for some reason.
Well, and plus her
can't
name,
quite figure out why, except that she looks a lot like the little girl. So she must not be dead. But I didn't know anything else beyond that.
And he looked. I think that was just to sort of set the scene. He looked like the young alcoholic version of her dad, which I mean, there wouldn't be blood relatives, but I think they wanted to really kind of get you in that headspace.
Definitely.
But then that whole, on the one hand, it's a little bit weird to have the ghost of Christmas Past show up and explain the plot to him and us, but I dug it. I dug it a lot.
I didn't mind that either.
And that moment, I felt conflicted because at the 1 hour mark, when the episode should end, and I'm convinced that this was on purpose. At the 1 hour mark is when Roland walks up and he's like, well, we did it. We wrapped it all up. Not as satisfying as you thought. You know, like we could write a book. You're like, man, wouldn't you want an ending that's more satisfying than this? Anyway,
I definitely felt like they were trying to, wink, wink, not as satisfying as you thought. I didn't realize it was right at the hour mark, and that's pretty genius.
Right. Well, which was funny because at that point I was like, oh, well, this must be the end. How cute that they're acknowledging that not all stories get tied up in a neat bow. And I moved my mouse. And I was like, there's 30 more minutes here. And I found myself, once you get to that reveal moment, really having a moral quandary of, what do I want them to do? Do I want him to turn it over to make a spectacle? I mean, this woman just wants to get on with her life and not be a whole thing. And it ended up with kind of a Watchmen movie ending, right? Where he sent a missile in himself to go there, knowing that he may or may not remember. And in doing so, it's pretty clear that what happens next is, because of the address in his pocket that his son almost certainly hands over to the documentary filmmaker, that they're going to track down and figure it all out. But I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know. In fact, I was a little disappointed that the son didn't just throw it away, right? Son could have memorized that address and then it would have still been kicking around in his head, right? The fact that he kept it bothered me, because I wanted it to be even more open-ended. I love the idea that we, because we're privileged as viewers, get to see the mystery, but that it remains a mystery. And that scene where they show him see the note, I'm like, oh, he's just going to be like, I don't know, that's where I found him. I wonder what that means. Throw it away. But he's a policeman. He doesn't need to have that note. Keeping it was like putting a flag on, but he isn't just remembering it. Like you say, he's going to do something. And that disappoints me because I don't want him to do anything. I want it to just be left out there for sure.
Here's the crazy part is somehow that ending managed to make everyone sympathetic. There's not a single character. There are characters that I hated that suddenly I can understand and I'm cool with. Hoyt, suddenly I'm like, oh, what a tragedy. Of course he would do all that stuff. The guy who took the security job for Hoyt, like, oh, well, yeah, no, of course.
He did not deserve to die.
Yeah.
Right? Like suddenly our heroes are not heroes in that particular scenario.
Yeah. And there was a time earlier in the show that I was afraid that Roland was going to be a real piece of work, but it turns out that he's great. And seeing the two old men and him saying like, hey, what if I stay here a few days a week? I mean, just everything about it just made my heart sing in a way that none of the other True Detectives seasons has done. I think this is my favorite season, full stop. I think it's even better than the first one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that because what I got out of the first season was a fun mystery box. That was fun to watch them open, but like all mystery boxes, once it's opened, it's not as fun anymore. What I got from this season was a complex story of characters that all feel real. There's no cutouts. There's no sociopaths. And yet it was compelling and mysterious and kept me wondering about it all the way through.
And I think there's real value in going back and watching the whole thing again, knowing exactly how everything works. And what seemed creepy and disturbing and disgusting instead is sweet. You know, it's like, oh, he banged his head. And so we're going to put him in a prayer position. Like, you know, and Mr. June is going to, hide from them the fact that he died. I mean, everything that felt so dark and sinister becomes, for lack of a better word, sweet, you know? And
even Junius, right? Who you think there's no way that guy is up to anything good. And it turns out, well, yeah. The people who worked with him thought it was weird. Well, there's a good reason why they thought he was weird, because he was hiding this whole thing. And the reason he was hiding it wasn't nefarious. It's not right. And that's the thing I love. It's like, it's not right that they did that. But it wasn't as bad as you thought why they did it.
Well, and in doing so, it's almost worse because I understand that this has been eating at him for 40 years. You know, it's like, I can't even imagine what it's like to do that. And he has a reason that he feels this debt to Mr. Hoyt and everything. I don't know. It's just great. It's the best. It's the best of breed. The acting was superb. The cinematography was superb. The pacing I liked, even if it was a little bit slow. The writing was extraordinary. This is definitely I've talked myself into it. It's my favorite. I think it's the best of the three seasons.
I wonder, do you feel like the documentarian is sympathetic?
No. Yes-ish. I mean, she clearly has an honest desire to get to the truth. It's up in the air whether or not she is willing to, have sex with people in order to sleep her way for access, which probably makes us less sympathetic to her. But I don't feel like there was a moment through the season that we're afraid that she's going for a sensationalist angle and that she's going to just muck stuff up. But it's pretty clear that she's a well-intentioned Sarah Koenig serial kind of person, right?
Well,
I was
with you until you brought up Serial.
Well, but again, I do that intentionally because it's like, there's baggage.
I never listened to Serial. That's the only reason I'm I have no idea.
The baggage comes with like, is it a good thing for a journalist to come in?
I just can't make a judgment on that because I never listened to it. But yeah, I agree with you entirely, including your knee-jerk reaction of no, right? Because your knee-jerk reaction is no. But I'm also like, well, but wait, am I being unfair?
Right.
Is she just like, really trying to get to the truth and tell a story that she thinks deserves to be told because she doesn't know what's behind it. And I think that's what I love the most about this, because it's true about the documentary It's true about Wayne. It's true about Roland. It's true about his son. It's true about almost everybody, including Hoyt, which is everybody thinks, well, I know I'm right, so I'm going to do this. Even if I can't prove it, I know I'm right. Right. And this is one of those things that constantly pervades our society right now, which is, well, yeah, okay, so they haven't proved it in court, but we know he's guilty. Right. And this is a great example of not always. There may be there may be a story that is more complicated than that.
Yeah. Great work. Great work. It's a good show.
All right, let's talk about The Office UK 103, wherein I believe we have a quiz.
Pub
we
quiz.
get to meet the traveling salesman for the first time.
Yeah. What was the American version of that character? The one that
I don't remember.
Whatever. Man, oh man, that British version of The Office. They're a lot more comfortable with giant dongs and cursing and sexual
I have a feeling
content.
too. Like, obviously, this would not play on broadcast television primetime US.
Right.
I don't know that they would do that in Britain anymore. Like, that is of a different era for sure.
Yeah, it's yeah. So at any rate, I was very struck by from the very first, or I think the second episode, the running gag was clearly him calling Gareth and just saying the word cock and then hanging up. This is also the first episode that they made it clear that Tim and I forget their version of Pamela are not a couple. Like, they definitely Todd Packer is the American version of the character. That's what it is. Finchy in the UK one, Todd Packer
Chris
in the
Finch.
US.
Yeah, Finch.
Yeah. So but all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh wait, yeah, you don't have enough time to set up all that stuff. So you definitely lead us to believe that they are a couple for the first two episodes, but then in the third episode,
the first episode we saw her boyfriend.
Well, we saw her, but did they?
So it was very clearly set out in the first episode. She is with somebody.
Okay.
But I think what isn't clear is, but is she cheating on him, or is it, is it a strong relationship? What's up with that? And this is the episode where it becomes clear that, well, her boyfriend thinks that he's in charge of their relationship. So maybe it's not as clear as we thought.
Yeah. And I feel like the stuff we've seen in the first three episodes is a lot more than the casual conversational flirtation that we saw in the U.S. version. Like there's a lot of maybe it's a cultural thing, but touching someone else's hair and all that stuff is a very coupley.
Yeah. There was there was a lot of that in last week's episode.
But
there was even more of that in this week's episode which worked, because then you get to see the boyfriend come and say, hey, we got you this giant penis as a present. Isn't that funny?
Right. Man, David Brent, a dirtier, meaner. David Brent seems a lot closer to Ricky Gervais than Michael Scott does to
Steve Carell.
To Steve Carell, yeah.
Yeah. This is a much more raw television show than I remembered it, even the first time I watched the UK version.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's just the times we live in, is casting a more critical eye on this sort of interrelationship between men and women in the workplace.
I think also the US version, for whatever reason, ended up landing on some fairly wholesome lessons and takeaways. I think our palate has just been set by the US version.
Maybe I am trying. And it's not even trying. I am not thinking of the U.S. version very much when I watch this, and it's because it's been years. I think it's harder for you to separate it because are you still watching it, or did you just finish watching?
I don't know. We watched the majority of it. I think we were on the last season when we fell off.
Yeah, so
much like the rest of America.
Super fresh in your mind. I don't think it's possible for you to separate it.
Yeah, but increasingly, I'm starting to value the characters for where they are. And by the way, Finchy, real piece of work, that guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's not okay. he is like and I think that is the fair comparison is, and and maybe it's because of broadcast TV standards in the U.S. I don't know, but these characters are much less likable. When they're supposed to be unlikable, they are unlikable. And you mentioned that about David Brent, and Chris Finch is even more so, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, folks, I hope you are continuing to enjoy our watch of The Office UK. We will continue that next week. I don't know what we're going to watch in place of True Detective next week, although Game of Thrones is coming back in a few weeks. Barry is returning. Maybe we'll watch that. But continue to support us and spread the word about patreon.com/Cordkillers, and we'll see you next week.
Hopes you have enjoyed this program.